At 65 years old, adults are twice as likely to be killed or injured by fire. That risk grows with age, doubling by 85. Fire is not the only hazard that threatens our older citizens. Falls lead the cause of death for unintentional injury in the home. 30% of people aged 65 and older are involved in falls each year. This leads to injuries, loss of mobility, and sometimes even death. Reduced mobility hampers movement and may result in failure to escape a fire. Because fire spreads rapidly in the home, sometimes only seconds are left to escape. By giving you the tools and tips to prevent these two issues, we can help you age in place safely. This is Remembering When. Cooking is part of firehouse life, and I love a good meal. Who doesn't? But whether I'm at home or at the station, there are simple rules I follow to stay safe. First, let's talk about cookware. The handles of pots and pans should always be turned inward. Children may reach for those handles, spilling their hot contents down upon them. Bumping into a handle may be catastrophic for you as well. Boiling water or hot grease may spill, causing severe burns. Keep those handles turned inward. Use an oven mitt or pot holder to prevent burns. Even if the handle is coated, these can still hold heat. Remember, this applies to teapots as well. Those handles can get real hot. Use lightweight pans. Heavy cookware is cumbersome and difficult to use. I'm a forgetful person. I always use a timer when I cook as a reminder that food is on the stove or in the oven. Turn off the burner on your stove if you leave the kitchen while cooking. If you must leave the kitchen for a short time, take an object to remind you. A kitchen timer, wooden spoon, or oven mitt is a helpful reminder that food is on the stove. We don't always know how new medication affects us. Some medication can make us drowsy or alter our motor responses. Don't cook if you're on new medication until you are comfortable with it. Cooking when drowsy, on medication, or under the influence of alcohol can spell disaster. If we fall asleep while cooking, or forget food is on the stove, it may catch fire. If your food does catch fire inside your pan or pot, simply cover it with a lid and turn the burner off. Do not use water to extinguish a grease or oil fire. Call 911 for fire response. Loose clothing can catch fire while cooking without you noticing until it's too late. Wear tight-fitting clothing or short sleeves when cooking. This will help avoid disaster. 18% of cooking fire deaths occur from clothes igniting. This is a simple, preventable statistic. Follow these simple rules to enjoy your meal. Cook safely. Every home should have smoke detectors. Without early fire detection, we place ourselves in danger of not escaping a home in the event there is a fire. Smoke detectors should be installed in every bedroom, outside the bedroom, on every floor of the home, and in the basement as well. Smoke detectors installed within 20 feet of a kitchen or bathroom must be photoelectric. Test your smoke detectors once a month by pressing the test button. Dual sensor smoke alarms, combining photoelectric and ionization alarms, provide the best protection. For proper installation of smoke detectors, check manufacturer's recommendations or contact your local fire department for assistance. Remember, fire waits for no one. Smoke detectors save lives. As we age, we lose mobility and strength. This makes ascending and descending stairs a task. A few easy tips will help keep you mobile, safe, and prevent falls. Keep stairs clear. Remove electrical cords, clutter, and any trip hazards. Remove any loose rugs from the top or bottom of your stairs. If your stairs are slick or smooth, install stair treads that are abrasive or grip tape. Contact your local hardware store for assistance to find the appropriate product. If you have carpet on your stairs, be sure it is tight and secure. Loose carpeting can be as much a trip hazard as a smooth surface. Use handrails when on the stairs. Have them on both sides and the whole length. Handrails should support the weight of a grown adult. Turn on the lights. Take off your reading glasses. Get a clear view of your stairs. Take the time to be careful. Don't rush when on the stairs. The rest of the world can wait. Don't become a false statistic. It's that time of year again when we must prepare for the cold winter weather. That means, besides splitting and stacking wood, cleaning our chimneys. Make sure the liner in your chimney isn't cracked by having a professional inspect it. Have your chimney cleaned at least once a year. Creosote can form inside your chimney with each use. This should be removed to prevent fires. If it is neglected, the billet can become worse and harder to clean over time. Don't neglect the chimney clean out as well. Remove debris from this space. Always clean out the pipe from your wood stove to the chimney. We do not condone the use of any commercial device made to extinguish chimney fires. If you have a chimney fire, dial 911, exit your residence, and await the fire department at your meetup location. The best way to combat a chimney fire is prevention. Brushing the flue brings warmth to you.
Good afternoon. My name is Deputy Chief Emerson with the Brunswick Fire Department. I'm here with Director Jim Graves from the Maine Fire Service Institute, here to talk about fires that have changed the nation. So Director Graves, in 1944 there was a fire in the city of Hartford, Connecticut, the Hartford Circus Tent Fire. We'd like to talk a little bit about that today. Can you set the stage for us a little bit, tell us a little bit what was going on in 1944? Where was the country in 1944?
In 1944, America was at war. The Second World Conflict was taking place. We were fighting in both the Pacific Theater, and we had just taken North Africa, and we were into Italy and hit the beaches of Normandy a month before the fire actually occurred. The fire occurred on July 6, 1944 in the city of Hartford. It was a time when Americans were looking for some peace and joy. There was a lot of families receiving letters that their loved ones had been lost in combat, so they were looking for some type of an out, and the circus coming to town was certainly one of those events that would get the children out and have some enjoyment.
Nice. Let's talk about the circus for a little bit. Hartford's got to be a big stop for the circus. Is Hartford a big community back then? Or?
Yeah, as I understand it, they were there for several days, several shows. The circus came to town, and very quickly they unloaded their equipment, which was, this is a huge train of equipment with the tents and the animals and all the acts and the staging, the seating, the grandstands. They had to put all that stuff up. So they'd pick a field somewhere and move in and set up. And then have the circus, so many circuses over a period of 3 days. So.
Let's talk a little bit about the fire, the day's events. How the fire started, what actually took place?
Well, there's a lot of debate to the fire's origin, to be very honest with you. There's some that said it was discarded cigarettes, and there's others that believe that it was actually an intentional set. An individual had confessed to setting the fire, Mr. Segee. He was a young adolescent teenager at the time working the circus. I believe he was from Ohio, and he was certainly a person of interest in this. The circus that year had been plagued with fires. As a matter of fact, doing research, I found that they had had a fire in Portland, Maine, an outside fire in some hay, and it was extinguished quite quickly. But on this day, the fire took place and became quite catastrophic. A lot of things led up to that fire. Most catastrophes have a series of events that take place. Things get missed, much like the Hindenburg disaster, the Titanic. things like that, and then this falls right in that line.
What were some examples of what were some of the things that took place to make this such a catastrophic event?
Key factors were they got to town, as I understand it, in Hartford, and they had to cancel one performance, and that's money. They had to cancel a show, so they had to rush. They didn't have the adult male labor that they normally had because the men were off to war in Europe and the Pacific and whatnot. So they had hired a bunch of teenage adolescents to do that work. And not to discredit them because they had been very successful, but in the rush of things, fire extinguishers were not placed where they needed to be. Just before that season, they had treated the tent with paraffin wax and gasoline mixture and rubbed it on the tent as a waterproofing. To think of that is just abscond, but in that time, that's what they did. And even as a child, I remember my uncle telling me that military tents were treated that way with, he said kerosene and paraffin, but whatever, it was some mix of some type of spirits. And they treated the tent, which that obviously would help the growth of the fire, propagate the growth of the fire.
Right. This was a fast fire, fast-moving fire?
Yeah, it's, I've read a lot of witness accounts of what happened. Basically what happened was they spotted the fire, and it was behind a set of grandstands. There's actually a photograph in one of my books that I have here. There's a photograph of where the fire started in this book. And the circus would go into, the band would go and play Stars and Stripes Forever. And that song being played signified that there was a problem. That put everybody on alert. So, and the people in the stands didn't quite understand. They're just striking up the Stars and Stripes Forever, no big deal. And the ringmaster tried to make an announcement for everybody to leave the circus tent. And some folks started to exit, but then power got cut off for whatever reason, another piece of the series of events, and he couldn't be heard. There was 6,000 people in there. And without the large speakers that were up on the high poles, no one heard him. So that's when they started to play the Stars and Stripes Forever, and then the escapes, people started to leave, but others felt like, well, it's no big deal. You know, we don't need to escape. They'll get the fire out, and the show will go on. And unfortunately, this day, it just took off.
So sad to think about, but after the fire was extinguished, what remained?
Well, it was a horrible sight. It's nothing I would want to have to respond to. But the fire department got there, of course, and it was just too late. There was a lot of heroics, though. I would really like to point that out. Very famous clown, Emmett Kelly, rescued a lot of people. And actually that day is considered the day the clowns cried. But Emmett Kelly was credited with saving lives. There was a couple of individuals that got up on top of where they brought the animals, the wild cats, in. There was cages, and they actually had blocked exits with those cages, unfortunately. But an individual was noted on several accounts of picking children up and throwing them over that cage, literally launching them up over so they could escape. There was a young boy with a pocket knife that they kind of felt like it was a tent they could get out, but it was so well maintained outside and weight put on it that it wasn't that easy, but he used a pocket knife and he cut the tent and he went out and then went back in and started getting people out that way. There was people that were killed from smoke inhalation, from being trampled because of the panic, and obviously from the thermal insult of that fire. The burns that individuals received were of the paraffin wax fallen from the tent onto them on fire. So it rained fire inside there. Moreover, you know, the poles were all wooden, and there was hay in the rings and whatnot for the animals.
At the end of the day, what was the death toll from this fire?
Well, that's been debated for years since it actually happened, but some say it's 169 and some say it's 168. It's kind of tragic to how they come up to that. I mean, they identified so many bodies. They actually found a young boy alive, buried under other people, which is disturbing to say the least, but they survived. But when they were all said and done and they were removing victims, they came up with body parts, and kind of found that, you know, there was one that was unidentified. There was actually, I think, 4 unidentified victims, including Little Miss 1565, which is a tragedy all in itself. They finally have identified her and removed her from the unidentified grave to be next to her brother in the family plot. And that was Little Miss 1565, I apologize. And it was Eleanor Emily Cook. And this is a very, very, very sad read, just trying to figure out these individuals and how they were lost. And some of their family members were all killed in the fire, and no one identified their body. Some of their fathers were off to war and maybe killed and never got home. So there's a lot of tragedy around this that was far-reaching for many years. And a lot of investigators from the city of Hartford, fire department and police department dedicated their careers to trying to solve this incident. Yeah.
Jim, did this tragedy go unanswered, or did we learn something from it? Did we move on as a fire service?
No, this is this got extremely legal. This was a mass tort claim, and obviously when there's this much tragedy, death and injury, things don't get pushed over. Great reform, especially in the city of Hartford, in the fire code, in the city, as far as these shows changed. And then there was a deeper look into all fire codes, similar to what we saw on Noy Street in Portland, Maine, back a few years ago. A deep look was looked at, and of course the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association Life Safety Code, was obviously looked at, and they made some adjustments to how they handled these type of performances, putting that many people inside a tent, the covering, the fireproofing of the tent, the practices, the fire watch, exit drills, maintaining exits, making sure that there are certain width and an emergency action plan when they set up.
Very good. Well, Jim, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Smoke detectors are a vital component to our safety in the home. That's why it's important that we ensure that the batteries in them are fresh. It is recommended we replace the batteries in our smoke detectors twice a year. An easy reminder is when we change our clocks for daylight savings. Some smoke detectors have batteries that last 10 years. We don't replace the batteries in these. Once the battery nears the end of life, it will begin to beep. A little known fact, smoke detectors have an expiration date. This is usually 10 years. Smoke detectors will give indicator beeps for malfunctions, low battery, or expired. Check the back of your smoke detector to know what the beeps means. This goes for all types of smoke detectors. Spring ahead, fall back, change your batteries. Welcome back to our segment on fraud awareness. Again, I'm here with Jane Margesson and Commander Mark Waltz. What are we going to be talking about today?
Well, today we're going to tackle a very difficult topic, which is the topic of elder abuse. And both Commander Waltz and I serve on multiple committees, and one of them is the Maine Council for Elder Abuse Prevention, which has close to 100 members of organizations, nonprofits, business, law enforcement, all coming together to tackle this very difficult problem statewide. And the fact is that elder abuse, unfortunately, is very often really has its roots within the family. And I know Commander Waltz has addressed situations like this right here in Brunswick, where you just, it's
right.
tough, isn't it?
It's tough because it's probably, as you mentioned, it's someone that the person trusts and loves. It's probably your caregiver. Could be financial. They could be taking your money or your property. It could be neglect. Maybe you're living with them and they're not taking care of you. They're not giving you enough food. They're not taking you to the doctor. Or it could even be physical abuse. They're tired because they're having to give you personal care and they're being rougher than they should be with it. the most important thing is there is help. You know, it's hard. You feel like you're stuck because this is your caregiver. How can you complain? But we have ways of getting you help. There's resources that, even if necessary, could help you get out of the house to another safe place to live. So it takes a lot of courage to call, but please call, because we want to help you.
It's extremely sad we even have to talk about this, that this is a thing. I always wonder myself, what signs should I be looking for for other people suffering from elder abuse? What should I be looking at when I think to myself, is there something I should be seeing, and then contact the police?
One of the things I think is really suspicious is when your friend, maybe you've had for years, all of a sudden her caregiver or children seem to be restricting his or her contact with other people, or they always want to be present for the conversations. They won't let you meet with a person alone anymore. Usually if that's going on, it's for some reason the controlling is maybe to cover up some type of abuse. They want to know what the victim says to other people. So that's an important one, is if you notice you no longer have the same freedom to interact with your friend that you used to have. Jane, maybe you have some other ones?
Yeah, and another place that this shows up a lot is actually within the financial world. There's a wonderful program called Senior Safe that started right here in Maine through the Maine Council for Elder Abuse Prevention, and specifically through the administrator with the Office of Securities of Maine. But Senior Safe is a program that has enabled bank employees to be trained to watch for the signs that somebody may be coming in to withdraw money and send money either, you know, to a scammer, or maybe they're withdrawing money and there's somebody standing next to them who they don't typically see when this person comes in to do their banking. And you can recognize some signs that there may be some undue influence, and maybe the money actually isn't going where it should be, and there could be a financial abuse situation that's unfolding right before their eyes. So that's another place where we see a lot of abuse, is just through financial arrangements. We've had cases, I know, of, you know, children who maybe have hit on hard times themselves, and they'll convince their parents to sign their house over to them because it'll save them money, or, you know, they'll find a story to tell. So the older person actually ends up signing their house over to their child, and then their child evicts the person from their home. I know that sounds extraordinary, but it happens, unfortunately.
Right, and I can't stress enough, if someone of your children proposes some type of arrangement where you start signing assets over to them, frequently the excuse is, oh, the state's going to take it, because if you go on Medicaid, you don't have to go to a nursing home, the state's going to take all your property. Well, the state may or may not ever need to access your property. You may or may not ever need to be in a nursing home or access Medicaid. I guarantee if you sign all your assets over, you just lost everything now. I had my deep dark secret is I'm also a lawyer. And back before I came to the police department, I had a client years ago that was a waitress down in Portland, and she had worked really hard to save. She had a customer that had said, put some money in a mutual fund, and she'd done well with it. And she ended up paid off her house and had some money. She had an estranged son that came back into her life, convinced her that she should sign everything over to him because he was going to take care of her and didn't want the state to get it, so to speak. And then about 2 months before the statute of limitations was going to expire, he tried to kick her out of her house, take all her money. We ended up suing him. There are remedies lawyers can help you with, and she got all her stuff back. But yes, definitely get help. Definitely get a lawyer involved before you sign any of these documents, so that you make sure you understand what you're signing and you know the consequences and things.
And are there legal services out there that people in this situation can consult and maybe even get information from before they even have to hire a lawyer?
Absolutely.
Yes, the Legal Services for the Elderly is a wonderful program in the state of Maine, and they have a easy access. You can just call them, explain your story, and they will work with you to kind of unravel what's going on, no matter what it is. And there's also adult protective services that can be helpful as well, just to, you know, come into the situation and maybe remove somebody from the home if they need to be to protect them, as you said, to, they're just, resources are available. I think that's such a key point here. People suffer in silence a lot of the time, whether it's elder abuse or scams and fraud. They're afraid, they may be embarrassed, they may just not believe what's happening, and they're all very understandable responses. But we hope that rather than suffer in silence, that people watching this program will say, I'm not feeling good about this situation, and I know something's wrong. Call Commander Waltz, call Legal Services, call the AARP Fraud Watch Network. We will absolutely help you.
And we're happy to do things on a confidential basis at the police department. So you call up, we'll have one of our detectives meet with you wherever you want. If you want it to be out in a public restaurant and so that the person doesn't know where they're going, more than happy to do that. We're happy to talk through things, and if you tell us you want us to help you, we'll help you. If you tell us, okay, thanks for the information, I don't think I want anything yet, we'll just give you information and move on. We're never going to force someone to take a step they don't want to take.
Okay. Well, this is, I think, a really unfortunate, dark topic. Is there any light message or glimmer of hope message that you'd like to give people that might be going through these kind of scenarios and situations?
I think my glimmer of hope is that the law has changed a lot in the past 10 years. Some of the criminal statutes have been changed so that people can be held accountable for taking money in these situations they couldn't before. And there's a lot of resources now, like legal services for the elderly and other folks that will help using some of the civil statutes to help you get your money back. So as soon as you can, if you can get the courage to reach out for help, there's people that can help you confidentially, and then they can help you get your resources back. So I think that's the glimmer of hope, is that attitudes are changing, the law is changing, we've got more ability to try to get people's resources back for them.
And I know we discussed before having maybe a friend to contact and to bounce ideas off them to make sure that is a good idea. Is that something in this situation as well, before the estranged son comes in and ask for this? Maybe this is a situation as well, they contact their friend and talk to them about it?
I think the only caveat I'll put on that is absolutely in general you want to have a trusted friend. The tricky part about this type of fraud we discussed today, though, is sometimes it's the trusted person that's the perpetrator. So I might add an extra word to our trusted friend on this one and call it a trusted uninterested friend. So if it's your best friend for the past 20 years that's never asked you for money and you've got no financial relationship with, great person. But if normally the child is your trusted friend and now it's the child asking for the money or this arrangement, that's maybe when you want to talk to someone else.
Anything else you'd like to say on this?
I think it's just important to know that resources are available, and please don't be embarrassed. You didn't do anything wrong. There's no blame associated with your situation. Unfortunately, these things do occur, not all the time, but they can. I think if you're working with caregivers, it's always good to make sure you've done background checks and know as much as you can who the people are that you're working with. If you're, for example, if you're a child who doesn't live near your loved one, your parent, let's say, who now needs in-home care, and you live, in California and they're located here in Maine, well, then you're going to need to do probably some extra homework, and maybe you want to speak with local police about how best to proceed to get the right care for your loved one, so that we don't get into this situation in the first place.
Yeah. It's hard. There's an obvious psychological element to this, and it's very hard to be able to trust your family member and to think that they could do something that would potentially harm you. So I can see that this is a very tough subject, and again, to our viewers at home, if at any point you need any assistance, like Jane and Mark have said today, obviously you can contact the police, you can contact the legal services they talked about. The link again is on the screen. If you need to contact that, go to that link, check it out online, find the resources. And like I said, it's unfortunate we have to talk about this, but again, thank you so much, both of you, for talking about this subject and shedding a little bit of light on this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.